Hi there, my name is Abigail. I'm 20 years old and I've suddenly become rich. I can't believe it myself, honestly. I'm still getting over the shock. But my story isn't all as rosy and beautiful as I'd like it to be, and that's because everything happens for a reason, and you're about to hear about it. I grew up in an orphanage because I was orphaned very young, almost as soon as I was born. I didn't know anything about my parents, except that there were rumors that they were involved in big scams or theft or something like that. No one liked me at boarding school because of my reputation, and every time a fork or bread or compote went missing in the canteen, everyone pointed a finger at me. Our principal, Mrs. Heather, was especially nasty to me because I went to her orphanage for free, all by law, and she was used to getting at least some handout from relatives to leave the children there or say that their kin had passed away. We have Abigail on duty in class today. Abigail, go and wash the blackboard rag. Why is it so dirty? Hurry up! The class has started, and yes, don't steal anything on the way. She always said that, and the whole class laughed at me. Because of her pressure, a lot of the boys there also disrespected me. There were times when they would just hide a pen or a notebook or Mrs. Heather's watch under my pillow for fun. Of course, she'd find it, and I'd sit in a dark room for 24 hours as punishment. It was a back room with no light and little air. The last time I had her scarf planted on me, I knew that all my classmates were involved. But how could I get the truth out when 33 people were standing against me? That's how many people were in my class. Did you do it again? Oh, you nasty girl. It's not for nothing that your parents have the same thieving fame. Don't say that! You didn't know them! And neither did you, did you? You have no right to say that anyway, and I didn't steal your scarf. It's not even beautiful. How dare you? Go into the closet. I walked slowly toward the closet. The boys were laughing. Some were throwing papers at me, some were spitting, and I just walked and couldn't do anything about it. But sitting there, quiet and alone, I taught myself to pass the time and think about things. And it was then that I got the idea to find out more about my parents. The only person who had any sympathy for me was the principal's daughter. She worked for us as a teacher. Her name was Leah. She felt sorry for me and used to bring me food and water and a potty in the closet. I was always grateful for that. When I got out after my punishment, during my free lunchtime, I went up to her and asked her to help me find my parents' documents. But you know that's dangerous, right? My mother will destroy you and me if she finds out. And if she doesn't, you see, this is my only chance and I have to take it. Leah agreed. When everyone went to bed, she walked her mother home and said she would be a little late for work. The principal left, leaving her daughter alone. Leah and I met in the hallway and broke into the office together. We looked for my papers, my history, or anything at all, and we found it. My file was hidden deep, and as soon as we opened it, half of a bracelet pendant fell out. I haven't taken off that bracelet since. It looked simple, made of a sturdy rope with one pendant. It had a pendant hanging that looked like a butterfly cocoon, and there was another one just like it amongst my papers. My file said that my parents were really involved in fraud, but they were killed a couple of days after I was born. I saw a picture of them with me. I hid it under my clothes and kept it. The file also had their names in it and the year they died. Taking the pendants, I attached them to my bracelet and went back to bed. I rolled it back and forth in my hands for a long time, and then I decided to take another look at the picture. I found an incomprehensible inscription on the back. I didn't pay much attention to it at first. It was only later that I realized that the text had my name on it. Unintelligible words, hastily written. My name, and that's all. After a couple of minutes, I read the text backwards, from right to left, and realized it was a cipher. It said I had to find such and such a place and open it with a butterfly. That puzzled me. What butterfly? What does it all mean? I approached Leah the next day, and she reminded me that I was calling my bracelet a cocoon. And then it hit me. I I need to get out of here and go to another city. It's too risky. What if it's all a lie or someone's cruel joke? I have nothing to lose here. I'm already 17 years old. In a year, I'll be kicked out of here and have nowhere else to go. I have to find out what it means. I think it's all for a reason. I'll try to cover for you. A week later, the director didn't show up at the orphanage one day. They said she had an upset stomach. I realized that Leah had something to do with it. I took advantage of the quiet time at lunchtime, and while Leah gathered a meeting with the teachers, I just ran out into the street, climbed over the fence, and ran as fast as I could. I had no money, none of my things, nothing. All I knew was that I had to get to this other city where my parents had lived and find the hidden place. But it turned out to be more complicated than that. Everyone took me for a stray child. Passers-by offered to help me or to call the police, and I ran away every time. I starved heavily, slept on the streets, and ate whatever I could get my hands on. But I kept hoping that in one more week I would get out. But in fact, my search dragged on for 3 years. All that time I was just surviving as best I could. I won't hide the fact that at some point, I just gave up on everything, deciding it was stupid. I found myself a group of homeless guys and they welcomed me. I started stealing like they did, eating what I could find, and finding clothes in garbage cans. I really became completely homeless. Sometimes I even wished I'd stayed there at the orphanage. At least I had a bed there, I could wash, and Leah was always very nice to me. I missed her. Over the years, I moved from one place to another. Sometimes we would sneak into someone's van and go wherever we could see. And then I turned 20. That day, I pulled out a framed photo of my parents and wept bitterly. "If you can hear me, give me some sign," I screamed, looking up to the sky. And then it started raining, and it got wet and cold. I cried even more. Then after a minute, I looked up and saw a sign with an address on it that I recognized. Turns out that 3 years later, I had found the place that was listed in the photo. I couldn't believe it. I just ran towards the place where the photo was taken, behind the house. My parents had been standing in front of a tree that was still standing. I peeled off the frame, and there was a hole that matched the shape of my pendants. I just put the 2 cocoons in there, and the tree frame opened. There was a chest inside. I opened it, hiding under the tree, and found a letter where my parents told me that they actually worked as bounty hunters, locating dangerous criminals and helping to put them in prison. They had a feeling they were going to get killed, so they wrote me this letter. In the end, it said that they had placed all their great fortune in one stone, a diamond, which was hidden in that trunk. I couldn't believe it was true. They had left the address of a man to whom I could sell the stone, and he would not let me down. Apparently, he owed them for some unrequited debt. I went to see the man a few days later because he lived very far away, and for some reason, he recognized me immediately.
Are you?
Am I who?
You look so much like your mom and dad. They saved my family's life. My children's, and they died themselves. They said someday I could do something for you, and I'm willing to help.
I just silently pulled out the trunk, the letter, and the picture of my parents. He immediately understood, took me to an office inside his mansion, sat down, and said he knew that this would happen eventually. While I was staying with him, in a couple of days, he opened an account for me and transferred a huge amount of money into it, and gave me about $1 million in cash on top of it.
This money is from me as a thank you. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had anything left.
Of course, I wasn't simply shocked. I was freaking out. Mr. Phil helped me buy an apartment in downtown Chicago and showed me how I could manage my money wisely. He was by my side for 2 years until the day he died, helping me start and grow my own business so that money would never stop coming in, for which I am eternally grateful. Years later, I returned to the orphanage with a personal guard in an expensive dress. Mrs. Heather came running toward me on tiptoe, thinking I was a sponsor. I threw a Louis Vuitton scarf on her desk and said, "This scarf is much nicer than yours. Thank you for putting me in the closet. That's where I figured out how to change my life." Her mouth fell open in bewilderment. Then I met Leah again. She was still as kind as ever. I brought her expensive gifts and invited her to visit me in Chicago. That was the end of my visit, and it was the last one in that horrible place. Now I am rich and very happy. I advise you guys not to give up, no matter what. Tell me, were you interested in hearing my story? What would you have done if you were me? Write your opinion about it in the comments below the video. Don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.